Hello and welcome to another Acuity Solutions Solid Edge Lunch and Learn. My name is Mike Ritzer. I'm an application engineer for Acuity Solutions, focusing primarily on Solid Edge. Today we're going to take a look at some Solid Edge administration functions that are built into Solid Edge. We're going to primarily focus on the administrator program. For those of you that haven't been in Solid Edge a long time, this may be something new. For those of you that have been around for a long time, this may also be something new. If you're managing a large number or a small number of Solid Edge users, the Solid Edge administration program is a very strong program and will allow you to build a list of company standardized options that all users will refer to by a simple file location and reference. So to get started, how do we get the Solid Edge Administrator program? Well, if you search after installing Solid Edge, if you search your Solid Edge installation, in this case I'm running ST6, if you search that and you look for anything that has anything to do with Administrator, you won't find it. And the reason is because out of the box, the administrator is not installed on Solid Edge. You have to go get it as an administrator. And it's a real simple process. You just simply go to your DVD for your installation. In this case, I'm 64-bit. You're going to go to the Solid Edge folder. And within the Solid Edge folder, there's an SPT Tools. And in here you'll find there's some registry cleanup things and various other items that may or may not be of value to you. But in here there's an SEadmin folder, and if I open that up, there's the SEadmin.exe file. Now I can make a copy of that off the DVD, and its location on your computer is important. Now let's say that I just decided I'll just stick it in my temp folder on my C drive. That's not going to be a valid location for that file. If I double click on it, there are DLLs that this program requires that aren't in this temp directory. They're located in the program directory for Solid Edge. So the placement of the admin.exe file is very important. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out of the temp directory here, and I'm going to put it in its proper location, which is the location that if you're a Solid Edge user, you probably know this path. Program files, Solid Edge, STX, whatever version you're using, and then the program directory underneath that. And I'm just going to paste it in there. So now that's the proper location for it, and there's a DLL file in there that will support the use of the Solid Edge administration program. Now along with this, just for convenience, I'm going to create a shortcut. I'm going to cut it from this location here and put it out on my desktop. And this will just be for convenience. Now I'm going to go ahead and execute the administration program. Now you have to put yourself in the frame of mind right now that you are, or I am, an administrator, not just a general user. This is probably not for general use. A general user to utilize. This is primarily for the administrator. So if I double click on this, what it's going to do is it's going to give me this little message, and it's going to say that there's no path for the public options document. Well, what is the public options document? Well, let's take a look at what that looks like. Here the program just came up. We'll start it again in a second. The Solid Edge options file is an XML file, and I'm not going to go into details on what an XML file is, but it's Microsoft's way of building a text document and allowing different programs to reference it. It's quite commonly used now. So the options.xml file is the file that the administration program is going to be looking at. Now, in previous versions, ST5 and before, that options.xml file would be found in the program directory, the program folder. You'd find it intermixed with a lot of files in here. These are all DLLs, map files, other executable files. But in here, you would have found the options.xml file, along with your holes.txt and your threads.txt and your propseed.txt. All those files would have been in there. In ST6, they've moved all that stuff to a folder called Preferences, which is nice because now we don't have to go searching through piles and piles of other files that don't mean anything to us to get to the files that really are important to us. So in Preferences, you can see there's an options.xml file. And I've got a copy of this so that I can get back to my baseline installation options. I've practiced this thing many times and I've had to go back to it. So I've just got a copy of it in here, but this is the file that we're working on currently. And so when you run the administrator for the first time, it's going to say, I am looking at the options.xml file that is in your C drive. In other words, it's reading that XML file that we were just looking at here. It's this options.xml file. And it's giving me that warning to tell me that it's an individualized options.xml file. In other words, it's localized on my computer alone. It isn't out on the network where other people can take a look at it. It's just on my computer. So keep that in mind. We're going to make this a networked file so that multiple users can point to the same options.xml file and inherit all of these settings by virtue of using this XML file. So let's quickly take a look at what the administrator does for us. As you can see, there is a bunch of things at the top here. If you're not in Insight installation, this probably doesn't make any sense to you, but if you do have Insight, here's where you can set up your regions or your areas for the different document locations for the workflow in Insight. Log files can be reset. Typically that's not done, but you can put all the log files in one spot if you want to. Again, folder mapping is an Insight thing. But if we scroll down a little bit further here, you can see some of the more important things to a potential Solid Edge user and the administrator. And that would be like user templates, the property seeds, the hole sizes. Down further, we've got reports in here somewhere. There's so much stuff in here that it's hard to see. There's reports. I'm going to go into detail about what the reports area looks like. There's also the thing for the sheet metal. You can now specify a gauge table. You can specify your own gauge table. That was released in like ST3 or 4. There's also a material table in here. So what we're going to do with the administrators, we're going to set up paths to network locations so that everybody shares the same preferences and the same files. Now, one other point I'll make is that you can sort these like the options. I just sorted them alphabetically, and that helps you find things maybe a little bit quicker. If I was looking for material, it might be easier to find it alphabetically. There is no search capability. It would be a nice enhancement if they could put a search in here so we could search for material or search for reports. But just the sorting usually gets you what you need, so that's good. So let's close this up. We haven't made any changes to our options yet. I just wanted to show you where things were. And let's start up Solid Edge. Again, I'm running ST6. If you haven't put that on yet, it's pretty powerful. It's got a lot of really nice enhancements. And later Lunch and Learns, I think a month or two down the road, we're going to do what's new in ST6. We'll have those available to you at a later date. So I'm in Solid Edge now, and if you go to the Solid Edge options, you've seen this thing called File Locations, and you can go in and you can change things about the makeup of where your material tables are, and you can move things around and so on. But at the top of this list, there's a file called options.xml, and this is where the administrator is going. This is where the administrator is going to store the options.xml file so that everybody can get to it. So the only thing your user really has to do once you've got Solid Edge installed is change this admin, and you might do this when you've finished installing their software. but you need to go in and you need to point to the new location on the network of where this options file is, so that everybody looks at the same options file and inherits the same settings. So let's simulate what you might do at your installation if you're going to control all of this through network files. Now I've set up a location excuse me, I've set up a location on my network here, and I've called it ST6 options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of all those files that are pertinent to the execution of Solid Edge. And again, they're in the preferences in ST6. In ST5, you're going to have to search around and find the ones that you want and locate them. The ones that are important are like, your prop seed files, your your material table, your gauge file, and that type of thing. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and make a copy of these files from my program directory, and I'm going to go to my network area, and I'm going to create a folder called SEST6 options. Now let's call it preferences. So I've just pasted in a copy of all those files that are adjustable, shall we say, and kind of control how your environment, your Solid Edge environment works in your own particular installation. Notice that I've got an options file. Now, you wouldn't typically keep this file in the same location as the rest of these files, because this is more of an administration file. You really probably don't want people messing around with this too much. So I'm going to simulate what you might do if you were an administrator for Solid Edge. I might just go ahead and cut that from this area and put it in a different area, and I'll simulate that by creating another folder. We'll call this ST6 options. I'm going to paste it in there. So this could be controlled. You could have set the privileges on it so that only you can write to it, and set it up so that it can't be manipulated by other folks. So I've got an options folder now. This is somewhere on the network, and it contains the options file. And I've got a preferences, and this is all the material tables and all that other stuff that needs to go along with it. So along with this, I'm just going to go ahead and another thing that you might do in your installation is create template files for the users, or perhaps you already have. So I'm going to simulate that by going to, again, templates, and I'm going to select, what I'm simulating here is I'm going into your network on your computer, and you're grabbing perhaps some templates that you use day to day at your own company. It has your own backgrounds on the drafts and stuff like that. I'm just kind of simulating that here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy those, and I'm going to go back to my network area. I'm going to create a folder called templates and paste those in there. Now bear with me a moment as I change the names on these, because these names look just like the names that are in the Solid Edge default. So I'm just going to change these to show that we've got different files here. Just going to add a little extra visual thing so that we can tell that these are actually different than the Solid Edge templates that are delivered by the system. And we'll just change the sheet metal one here too. Okay, so I've got my company templates stored away on the network. I've got my Solid Edge preference files stored away on the network, and I've also got the options.xml file stored away on the network. So let's simulate what things are going on here. What kind of things can happen here? Remember that I'm still pointing to my old XML file, options.xml file, the one that was delivered with Solid Edge, and I'll show you that in a second here. Again, we're going to go to the Solid Edge options. I'm going to go to File Locations. You can see that I'm still pointing to the old options.xml file right here. So I'm going to merrily go along, open up a part file here, and I'm going to create a hole. And I'm going to create a specific hole. Maybe it's a 1-inch simple hole. And I want to save this because I want to use this again and again. Now your users today can do this. They can save, like this is a simple 1.0 hole. They can save this, but it saves it locally into their custom.xml file. I'll show you what that means in a minute. Let me just commit this hole. So what that buys you is the ability that when your user wants to create a hole again, that user can fly this down and there's that simple hole right there. But it's only localized for this user. So if I go back to the C drive, Program Files, Solid Edge ST6, and Preferences, you can see it is, my local time is 1 p.m., 1:20 p.m. You can see that the custom.xml file has been modified. And in there, if we look at this thing inside, you'll see that simple hole that I created. I think it usually puts it at the bottom of the list. Again, this is being, there it is right there, simple hole, simple 1.0 hole. So this is being maintained so that these holes can be remembered for the user. But again, this is local on this one user's computer, so no one else can really share that file. And it works great for the local user because then they can come back and they can pull that same file. But if lots of different people are using this same type of file, they're creating the same hole over and over again, and it could be done on the network so that everybody shares the same definition. So let's simulate how that can work in your controlled environment, in your Solid Edge administration. So I'm going to go ahead and restart the administrator. Again, I'm getting the message saying that I'm using the local options.xml file. And I'm going to go ahead and open my network version. This is the one that I just made a copy of onto my network. Now I'm working with the network options.xml. So at this point, what I'm going to do, just to show you how this works, I'm going to change just the user template at this time. Remember, I made copies of the user templates. So I've just set this area up for the user templates. And I saved that to the network options.xml file. I'm going to start Solid Edge as a user now. Remember, I'm a user, not an administrator. So once I'm in Solid Edge, and I'm going to show to you that the file locations have not been modified yet. So I don't think they will have. The options may have changed because I did it locally yeah, it did change here. But you can see that the user templates haven't updated it. I could select this and hit update and it would update, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave my templates the way they are, because if I do a new right now, you can see that my user tab just shows me the standard out-of-the-box templates from Solid Edge. I don't want that. I want it to show my customer-based ones. So I'm going to go back to Options. I'm going to select this guy, and I'm going to tell it to update. Well, the only reason I have to do this is because in the options.xml file, I haven't told Solid Edge to look at this XML file. It's kind of a twisted thing that you have to go through, but once you get it set up, it works great. But you can see, because I did the update, now my user templates are pointing to the template area on the network. So if I go to New now, I got my tests. There's where I renamed them to Test 1. So let me explain a minute why that happened. And I think if I start Solid Edge again, fresh, I don't know if it'll revert back to the old templates or not. Let's just take a quick experiment to see if this actually does revert back to the old template. Because my options.xml probably, no, it did not revert back to the old. Okay, so it did remember that. That's good. I guess it does do that in some cases. But the bottom line, if you want to make sure that everybody inherits those settings and is utilizing the correct XML file, you got to tell it to use that XML file, that options.xml file. So I'm going to go into where it says options, which is hard to find sometimes. Probably went right by it. Everybody's going, hey, it's right there, it's right there. Where is it here? Looked at this stuff too much. Customs. That's not custom settings. It's right here. Solid Edge Administration. So see, it's still telling Solid Edge to look back on the old XML file. So I'm going to go ahead and change that so that we're now looking at transfer area. Here, options, this guy. So now we're looking at that. So what that means now is that I don't have to go in and hit that update button anymore. It's going to automatically, every time the user starts Solid Edge, it's going to read this options.xml file. It's going to change all these. So let's go ahead and make some other changes here. Let's see if I'm on track here on my list here. Yep. Okay, so to make a change, you just double click on it. It's saying that the transfer area is here, so I'm going to go to the preferences and say OK. So now it's looking for the custom.xml in the proper location on the network. I'm going to use holes.txt. Here's my pipe threads. Here's my link management. This is all Insight stuff. The options is fine. I can come down here now and set my my frames. I may want to create my own frames folder, right? If you're using frames and you want your structural definitions to be saved in a location. And I can save those frames so that the frames all go to the proper spot. And of course then you've got your material tables in here somewhere. This is where it'd be nice to have a search capability. Transfer area, preferences, material. So all these things will help so that everybody's sharing the same files. When they open up and they save a material, then everybody's going to be able to see that material and not just the localized location on the thing. And then the other thing is reports. And reports, those are files, and again, this is has been kind of a mystery for a while with Solid Edge, but those files, if we go to program, those happen, they're under template. Those files happen to be the definitions of like your bill of materials definitions and tables, any tables that you create, any whole tables that you create. You can save all that stuff at the draft level, and it all gets stored in this little file called draft list. The holes, drafting holes, block tables, all that kind of stuff gets saved in what's called the reports area. So that's another area that you may want to copy. Just do a copy from the baseline into your network area, and then everybody can share those reports, those files, and get the same bill of materials settings and those types of things. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I'm going to go ahead and set that up. So I'm going to use the reports area for that. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now the next time somebody starts their Solid Edge, if they're pointing to the correct options.xml file on your network, all of these locations should be set up in my file locations automatically for me. I shouldn't have to hit update. Let's take a look. Solid Edge options, file locations, and I guess I do have to update. I don't know if that's a bit of a bug in ST6 or Or maybe I just didn't do something right here, because it looks like these guys didn't get updated. These should have all updated. This guy updated, this guy updated, this updated, the report's updated. Maybe I don't have the hole sizes set up properly. Let's go through that one more time so you can kind of see how that works. I thought that I set these up, but maybe I didn't. Nope. Oh, I only did the prop seed one. No, I didn't do the... Oh, I know what I did. I got to change this to the transfer area for each one. And this one is the prop seed file. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. See, it reverts back to the C drive on me. I don't know why it does that. It seems like it would know that, hey, I'm changing all these things. But each time I've got to go in and give it the path down to that particular item. And what else did we do here? I think my reports and everything else is pretty much set up properly. So we'll save that off, close that. Again, I've just left as an administrator. Now I'm a user. I'm starting up Solid Edge. First time since the administrator changed the options.xml file. Now they should be all updated. Oh, by gosh, they're not. So I guess you have to, the user has to know that they have to go in and change this. So hopefully you'll have this all set up ahead of time so that when they first start running Solid Edge, they'll get the proper settings. But this should, I'm thinking that this should update on the fly as you modify the XML, the options.xml file. These things should update. They shouldn't have to hit update. The user wouldn't know to do that. So perhaps that's maybe a bug in ST6 or an oversight in ST6 that we can look at. So that's kind of wrapping this up. That's kind of how the whole thing works. I just want to kind of demonstrate one more thing here. If we look at the custom.xml file, the last time this was updated was about 12:30 this afternoon, and this contains settings for your hole definitions, your a whole bunch of different things. As you're creating bosses, mounting bosses, those types of things are all stored in here. I'll give you a quick look at what. See, here's the holes that that are already saved for us, and that's about all that they deliver. So, but now that I'm pointing to this network area and I'm pointing to the network version of the custom XML file, I'm going to go back to my part1.par. I'm going to create another hole, and if I fly this list down, you'll see that simple hole still exists there, and that surprises me unless I already had one in there. I must have already had one in there. But the bottom line here is that as you create more holes, as your users create more holes, oh, I want to go back here and save this definition. You can see it now appears on the list right there. So as your users begin to create more holes, standardized holes for the company, they'll be saved in the custom.xml file, and everybody can share them. The same thing holds true with, now I want to take a quick look at the custom.xml file here for you so you can see that it's been updated. Now it's 1:34 local time now, so it's this customs.xml file was updated, and there will be a hole down in here called CBOR. There's my simple hole. Should be one in here somewhere called CBOR. I don't see it. But anyway, that's the way it works. So I want to just spend a minute just going through one more thing in draft. Go to my test one draft template. And things like parts lists are another thing that administrators seem to have some issues with, trying to get everybody to look at the same bill of materials. And this is basically how it works. First off, let me put a view of an assembly in here. And next up, I'm going to create a parts list. Now, as an administrator, you're going to create a parts list to get your standardized settings in here. And so let's say that my company name is ASI, and this is BOM 1533. This is a certain way that we want a bill of materials to be saved. So if I click OK, now that becomes an item on the list right there that I can go ahead and select that. But how do we get that out to the users? Well, that's through that reports. So if you set this all up correctly, the draft list.txt file has now updated. 136 is a local time here, and that will have a list in it for the ASI BOM 1533 bill of materials. So by setting this up and using your options.xml and have everybody point to the same reports area, everybody can see that bill of material. Excuse me, that bill of material definition. Lastly, I'll give you another quick tour of another way to use this whole thing. And again, the whole thing is getting everybody to look at the same files on the network, right? So in properties right now, under file properties, there's only, under category, there's only 3 items, and this is the one that was by default put in, that was typed in when the file was created. But where are these other ones coming from? Well, that's coming from a file called propseed. And again, propseed you will find in your options, or your preferences. And in here, there's the category, and that's the category where we just were in that part file. You can see there's hardware, miscellaneous, and there's nothing under the default. So if I wanted to add software, let's say, as one of those items in that category, I can do that, save that off, and because it's a network copy of that, when the any user comes in and does properties, I did material table, sorry, comes in and does file properties, under category now, they inherit the software item for that property. So again, this is the whole thing culminates in the fact that you can put all these files on the network and you can have everybody share them, and all you have to do is change the options.xml file for each user, and everyone should, if you use the update apparently in SD6, everyone should inherit those changes and be able to look at all those files and share them and share all this data, and you'll reduce the amount of repetition that you're having in creating these multiple copies of things. So on behalf of Acuity Solutions, I hope this was informative. Hope you took away something from this. And again, on behalf of Acuity Solutions, Mike Ritzer. Have a great day. We'll see you again.